Hi, this is Steve Gillmor, and if I can avoid lisping, this is the Gillmor Gang. It's going to be an abbreviated version today due to some people in strange places having to go do strange things. And what I mean by that is, of course, Robert Scoble. Welcome, Robert.
Hey, how are you doing? I'm in a weird place today.
Gee, that's a bulletin. Rocketing to the top of Tech Meme.
I'm back in Microsoft. Back in a Microsoft office.
Bing.
Bing. Well, outside this window, there's a virtual Earth banner. That gives you an idea of where I am.
Cool. Also joining us, as he did last week, to great effect, is the infamous Danny Sullivan.
Hello. I'm in a weird place today.
Okay.
No.
And the weirdest of all is our special guest, formerly the co-founder of FriendFeed and now the CTO of Facebook, Brett Taylor. Welcome, Brett.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
It's great to see you. So, without further ado, how's the Facebook versus Google war going?
You always ask the juicy questions. No, I think we've been pretty focused on our own products, so not so much focused on the perceived war, but just focused on improving Facebook.
Oh, I'm shocked that that's what you would say about that question. So there is no war? Everybody loves everybody?
No, I mean, I think, certainly there's a lot of rivalry between companies in Silicon Valley, and I think it's really healthy. It's actually very motivational for people at the company, but at the same time, I mean, if you look at, I think war often sort of overstates things. I think most people use these products, use both of the products and use them both pretty differently and like them both. So I think all in all, at the end of the day, it's probably less of a war than most people make it out to be, even though the rivalry is kind of fun to talk about.
Would you agree with that, Robert?
Yeah, it's fun. I'm here at the Bing mapping team, and they definitely, you can sense they have some competition issues with Google. They wouldn't let me take pictures of their new secret camera that goes on top of the cars because they're scared that Google will see how to do imagery a little bit better than what they're doing. So you can sense from there it's a competition, but it's a friendly competition. It's not it's not as violent as sometimes the press makes it out to seem.
Danny Sullivan, you wrote a post about the list of celebrations of failures that Google had, leading off, of course, with the Google Wave disappearance. You think there's a war going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's been interesting because, I kind of want to taunt. I like Facebook sitting over there doing what it does well, which is the social aspect. I kind of wanted to say to Google, can't you just leave them alone and let them do it? And, they don't seem to be going into search, so let it go. But, the reality is there's a lot of activity in the social space. The Facebook ads continue to get a lot of very positive reviews about how well they work for people. Google is an ad company, and so I think they see the social space as something they just have to get into, almost in the way that Microsoft feels like they kind of have to get into search. But Google's challenge seems to be that they seem to be kind of fairly inept at social. So,
would you agree with that, Brett? Do you think that Google's inept?
No, I mean, I think it's a really interesting. I mean, I think it's kind of the innovator's dilemma at work. When you're a large company, you tend to think about every new product development from the perspective of what assets do you have and how can you leverage those assets to move into new markets. And I think sometimes that point of view can limit the creativity of the products that you develop. And certainly, I think you've seen that with Microsoft moving into some web services and Google moving into social. And sometimes very small companies with no resources like Foursquare can do something incredibly, disruptive and wonderful, even though they don't have the resources to do it. That is Silicon Valley. That's why we're all here working here, because it's so cool that small companies can be as impactful as big companies in these things. But I think if you look at like the success of Bing at Microsoft, I mean, it shows you that given enough tries, big companies can do some really creative things. And so I think we consider, obviously take our, competition with companies like Google very seriously, but we also look at, I think, if you asked, Mark, who is going to be the company that's the biggest sort of, challenger to Facebook in the long run, it's probably going to be some company that's, doesn't exist yet, just because that is sort of the nature of Silicon Valley.
So it won't be Foursquare, in other words.
Actually, we're big fans of Foursquare here. I mean, Foursquare integrates with Facebook, and I think it's a really awesome product.
All right, so instead of trying to tease something that won't happen out of you or anybody here, let's talk about, give us an idea of why you think Google Wave didn't get traction, and whether you think that that's got any relevance to what you're doing or are working on.
Yeah, this is actually very personal for me. I don't know this.
You're breaking up a little bit. Hang on.
Okay.
Try it again.
This is very personal for me because the two guys who started Google Wave were the two guys who started Google Maps with me at Google, Lars and Jens Rasmussen, and they're really, really good friends of mine. So it was really sad for me to see, just because I know they put a lot of their heart and soul into that product and really cared deeply about it. I think, though, the interesting thing about Silicon Valley, and I actually haven't read Danny's article yet, but I actually think that, like, in Silicon Valley, things that are very innovative but don't succeed are badges of honor and not viewed as failures. It's what makes Silicon Valley so unique to other areas, in the sense that, like, people respect you for having sort of moved the needle forward in some way, inspiring people with new ideas. And what's amazing about Wave is I don't think it really resonated with people as an end user product, but some of the technologies demonstrated by that product, I think, made people in Silicon Valley certainly think differently about real-time communication and merging email with more real-time forms of communication. So, I mean, I think in that respect, Wave was a really resounding success, in the sense that it really got a lot of people thinking about communications products differently.
Well, I'll let Danny respond to that in a second, but don't you think? I mean, from my perspective, FriendFeed had more to do with the way that we think about real time than Wave did. Wave seemed to be a follow-on product to FriendFeed as far as real time updating.
Was that to Danny or to me?
That's to you.
To me, I certainly hope. I mean, FriendFeed's sort of in that category too. I don't think we ever reached as many users as anything like a Facebook or a Google, but certainly FriendFeed as a product is very influential, and in the way people thought about that. And that is part of Silicon Valley. Sometimes some of the coolest products don't necessarily succeed as products, but succeed as sort of technologies that inspire other entrepreneurs. And products like Next, which I think form the basis of Mac OS X and modern Mac products, to Wave and FriendFeed. The wonderful part about being in Silicon Valley is I think people have a great deal of respect for those products, independent of their success as like sort of independent consumer products. And I think it's really important that we maintain that point of view, because no one would start a company if it were a badge of shame to not have it succeed. Most new products fail in some way. And certainly, our philosophy here at Facebook is move fast. And that involves making lots of great things, but also making some mistakes in the process. So I think when you talk to me about Google Wave, I try to look at sort of all the great inspiration it gave, and not just the fact that it didn't succeed as a consumer product.
Well, moving fast, how fast are we going to have to wait for FriendFeed capabilities to emerge in Facebook?
It's something we've been talking a lot about here. I think in general, making every aspect of Facebook update more in real time is something we actually are very much focused on. Trying to do that in the right way. As you know, I think some people describe FriendFeed as a fire hose at times. That's something we're sensitive to, so we're trying to do it in a reasonable way. But it is something that we're actively working on for a lot of different aspects of Facebook.
Okay, Danny, now's your shot.
Oh, well, I should say that the celebrating failures really came from what Eric Schmidt had said the same day that Wave was announced that it would be closed. And he said, we embrace this sort of thing. And I did sort of say in my article, I agree with it, and I agree with Brett that, you do want companies going through and doing these kinds of experiments and taking risks, and it would be a boring world if they didn't do it. I did just find it a bit ironic because at the same time, while internally I think they kind of celebrate or embrace the idea that they should try all sorts of crazy things. I probably kind of disagree that they go out cheering to the world when they actually have a failure, which is kind of how you could read his comment as well. And about Wave, one of the things that he said, I've got his quote up here, and he's saying, as a culture, we don't over-promote products. We sort of release them and see what happens. Yeah, no. I mean, with Buzz, they did heavily promote it. I mean, they promoted it to every single person on Gmail in a big way. I mean, an almost unprecedented way. With Google Wave, I was there when they launched Google Wave, and it was positioned as this revolutionary, big, huge new change that was going to come out, and it was a keynote of their core developers conference. So that was a lot of heavy-duty promotion that went behind it, and that doesn't resonate with what he's saying. So to me, it was sort of a mixed message. I think they do celebrate the idea that you can take these sort of risks, and I think that they're a wise company in that after a little while, they may pull back and they may go. In some cases, though, they sometimes forget. Like with Google Answers, I think it sat out there for years. I think Google Catalogs is the same way, where they put this product out there and it sat there for like 7 years before they finally shut it down because they just sort of forgot about it and it was cleaning house. But I probably more agreement than disagreement. They will have these kinds of failures, and in some ways, it's also helpful for Google to literally celebrate the failures, because you get people who assume whatever they do, they're going to dominate. Then they get panicked. Then they start looking at ways to block Google. Should we get the government involved? Should we get these sorts of things? And so when Google has a failure, they can go, see, hey, we're not perfect. You don't need to worry about us. We're not going to get there.
Yeah,
and everything.
Microsoft could just give away money on the street if they wanted to become.
That would be a success. That would be a big success for those getting the money.
It's interesting. The problem, I say Google Wave's team did some LSD, but stopped doing it at some point. And let me explain what I mean by that. They developed this infinite strip that you could write on or put video or put photos on any place on that strip all at the same time with tons of other people. I saw it used at a conference one time, and I was sitting next to somebody, and people were writing on this infinite strip all over the place. And that idea is actually pretty interesting, and I hope to see that idea worked on some more and maybe come back out in a future product. But the problem is they stopped doing the LSD. They stopped having creativity, and they got into a meeting. I can just see this meeting that they would have, and they would say, well, we developed this weird super wiki infinite strip, and nobody's going to understand what that's for, so we better stick it in the people around the world are using Outlook and Gmail. They understand email, so let's put this new thing, this infinite strip, into an email interface. And that screwed it up for me. That was one mistake. The other mistake was, if, let's say, Danny Sullivan wrote something brilliant at this point in the strip, and there was 100 other people writing on the strip all up and down, how did I share with some other person that Danny Sullivan said something brilliant right here? There was no permalink to that strip. There was no way to share. And we're in a sharing world now, and they didn't give us the ability to share and spread the stuff virally. I think that was a major mistake.
Yeah, I think
that came out of not talking to customers about how they would actually use this thing.
Right. Well, I mean, the customers at the beginnings of this real-time thing were us. So, I mean, it's not that people like you and me and others didn't say this to the developers at the time. I mean, it was not exactly a secret that you need to have a permalink addressable environment. I mean, that's so. Brett, what do you think that you've learned from these kinds of technologies that you're thinking about integrating with Facebook?
One thing I feel I've learned looking at both FriendFeed and products like Wave and a lot of Facebook products as well is that real time changes quite a bit when you're dealing with very small groups or very large groups. So if you've ever been inside a chat room, it works very well with 5 people or something. And if you ever go on something like an IRC channel with thousands of people, it's impossible to sort of keep track of all these conversations. And so one of the things that's kind of interesting, I think, will be an interesting challenge is more and more stuff that you see on websites updating in real time is taking into account sort of the number of participants and who you're talking to. And I mean, because these are fundamentally trying to recreate human experience. You know, a chat room is trying to recreate the sense that you're in a room talking with people. And
Yeah.
if you're in a room with 200 people, it's not like everyone's talking to each other with megaphones, right? You're all sort of clustered in the little groups around the room and meandering. And I don't think anyone's really created the user interface or technology to recreate that human experience. And so I think we've just gotten to the point where we were like, look, we can make things real time. We haven't gotten to the point of translating that back into real human interactions that make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the most formidable challenge, is sort of more of a user interface problem than a technology problem.
Brett, this is an interesting problem. I call it the masses as asses problem, because if you and I have a conversation, it'll probably be interesting to both of us. But as soon as more and more people join our conversation, the utility to the two of us goes down. And I thought FriendFeed was really groundbreaking in that it had some ways to make a chat room a little bit more useful and keep some of the noise down. Are you discovering new ways to do that, to get more people involved in a conversation, or in a conversation, while keeping the utility that a smaller conversation has?
Yeah, I think that's something that I'm personally extremely passionate about. One of the things, you know, we've been talking a lot here at Facebook is about, you know, your different friend groups and how you interact with them differently, and how to sort of maintain conversations among groups of people at the same time, sort of having that stream of everything that's going on in your social network. I wouldn't say we've solved it yet, but the nice part is, when I was mentioning sort of celebrating failures, I think this is really important, because now when we're working on this problem, we're building on the experiences that we learned at FriendFeed. We're building on the experiences of products like Wave. We're building on the experiences of products like Twitter, trying to sort of figure out how do people have conversations online in a sort of a less structured way. And so, you know, I'm hoping that we can do some really interesting stuff there, but there's a good chance we'll have, you know, a few failed starts as well. I mean, that's just the nature of technology development.
Are you looking at ways to mix in other media into the conversation? For instance, I'm sitting next to a secret camera that I'm not allowed to show you. I took a picture of the box and put it up. But having those visuals as part of a conversation is really pretty interesting and important. It helps us discover what we're talking about. You know, if I say I'm having pizza, it's one thing to say I'm having pizza. It's another thing to put a picture of the pizza up on the web and talk about it.
Yeah, that's a really compelling point. I mean, I think so many of the products that have like caught people, you know, really captured people's attentions lately, integrate photos and video in some interesting way. I mean, obviously very colorful things like chat roulette, down to more practical things. I think there's an interesting startup called Daily Booth, where I actually think everything is in photos. And I think it is, those types of media really resonate with people. And I mean, it's obviously something we think a lot about here.
What's your opinion of some of the moves that Twitter's made in recent weeks and months regarding integrating these kinds of different media types?
Yeah, I haven't been following it that deeply. Is there something specific that you had in mind that I might have an opinion on? I actually just haven't followed some of the recent.
No, I don't ever use Twitter. I use FriendFeed, but I'm if it's about the Beatles or FriendFeed, I'm interested. But you know, there have been some reports. Robert, you probably know about what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about, but they just added this new suggested users list, and that actually is pretty cool. It's bringing me all sorts of people that I actually do want to follow, and that's sort of a copy of a Facebook feature, right? But they did it pretty well. One thing, Brad, have you seen the Flipboard thing that I keep praising? That's for the iPad.
Yeah, I installed it. It didn't. I had installed the very first version, so it was a little quirky for me. But it was a really neat idea. I mean, I love the idea of making this content feel more magazine and book-like. I mean, it's a really interesting concept.
Does that have any impact on your plans or lack of them for an iPad version for Facebook?
So, I mean, basically, at Facebook, the main resource that we constantly have to optimize for is just engineering resources. We have about on the order of 1.3 million users for every engineer at the company, and so we're not, as big of a company as a lot of people think we are, and so we've been really focused on keeping our iPhone app, cutting edge, and I think we are interested in doing an iPad app in the future. It's just, we're constantly balancing these priorities. But at the end of the day, I think we want to have Facebook is a naturally mobile product, so we want to have a presence on all of these devices. But we're just constantly wrestling with the engineering resourcing issue, which is just unfortunately a zero-sum game. And I can't say we've made all the right decisions, but it's a really difficult problem.
Well, even just having a detection for a version that doesn't force that pixelated 2x blow up of the iPhone app would be important.
I agree.
Brett, since I'm here at the Bing mapping team and there's all sorts of mapping cameras all around me, are you guys talking about, or I know you're thinking about location, but do you have anything else to reveal about where you think Facebook is going to go? Because so many businesses are wondering, what is Facebook going to do with location?
No comment. It's something we're really interested in, but I nothing to announce right here. But it's something we're really interested in. I think if you look at a lot of the coolest location apps today, like GoAll and Foursquare, actually already integrate with Facebook Stream in meaningful ways, and I think it's a use case that's really resonated with people, and so we're really interested in it, but nothing specific to announce.
Okay. When you look at to go back to Flipboard, when you look at Flipboard, do you think that it's going to push Facebook to innovate on user interface and user experience in a new way?
This is something that I've actually been thinking a lot about. There's sort of the consistency of Facebook across devices versus the consistency of applications within a device. So the iPhone and the iPad have very specific UI conventions, and websites that run within a web browser that you use a mouse for have specific UI conventions, and mobile touch sites have specific UI conventions. So one of the things that I've been sort of just interested in is, do we make Facebook consistent across all of those devices, or do we make Facebook consistent with the device on all of those devices? The advantage of making Facebook consistent is you sort of know where to find the menu on no matter where you're using Facebook. But at the same time, you want to feel as native as possible. So actually, it's something that the design team has been debating a lot here, what the right approach to that is. Especially as if you look at devices like the iPad, they've developed very distinct and very different UI conventions than I think most other devices. And it means that if you make it really meet all of those UI conventions, it might actually look very different than Facebook on other devices. And that really has some downsides to it in addition to having upsides. And I'm actually curious of your opinion on this.
I find it's changing how I look at Facebook. It got me to really engage with Facebook in a new way and sort of revealed to me how I screwed up my social graph as well. And so it's getting me to reevaluate.
No longer mad about the 5,000 friend limit?
I still am. Because I use Facebook differently, and let me explain that. Yesterday, I was looking for somebody's phone number, and I couldn't find it in my contact book, and I went to Facebook and used Facebook as a Rolodex to find my friend's phone number, and it was there, of course. And so I want to have more Rolodex. I want to have more people in Facebook so that I can find utility like that. But when I'm reading in Flipboard, I want to see only my closest personal friends, family photos, with maybe a little bit of news from the rest of my looser social network, and I don't have that kind of control of the social graph in a way. I mean, I know I can add them to lists and stuff like that, but it's a lot of work to make that happen. And so now
I don't think you're alone in this problem, Robert. It's something that actually I think we need to address, and we are planning on addressing with our product, which is recognizing the fact that the people you interact with daily are definitely a different group of friends than the elementary school people that you friended on Facebook, sort of out of social obligation. And I think it's probably reasonable to say it's a little bit of a shortcoming of our product currently, and it's something we really would like to, we're really actively working on fixing. And I think it also has to do, when we were talking earlier about conversations and groups and things, I mean, all these things sort of come together where, your Facebook friends represent everyone you know or have ever known in real life. And those are really distinct groups of people, and giving you the better tools to help sort that out is something that I think we absolutely need to do. I also want to bring up the phone number thing. Actually, I think one of my favorite ways of using Facebook is actually not using the site at all. Our iPhone and Android applications have the ability to sync with your address book, and it adds your Facebook profile picture to all of your contacts and syncs their phone number and email address from Facebook. And it's pretty neat because every time one of your contacts updates their phone number, it updates your phone. And whenever they call, it shows their Facebook profile picture, which is just a great experience.
No, I absolutely love that. Where was I going to go with this? It's interesting too that using Flipboard, now that I have Twitter and Facebook right next to each other, I really want to remove all tweets from my Facebook stream because I'm seeing so much duplication between Twitter and Facebook, and nobody has yet figured out how to do that, although you guys could sort of help with that.
Well, FriendFeed figured out how to do it. It worked quite well.
Yes, that's true. But I need that in Facebook to say, don't show me.
Who are those FriendFeed guys? I mean, we have nobody to ask.
So you can hide all stories from any given application from your stream, but I think it is worth noting, though, I think a lot of people do have multiple accounts, Twitter and Facebook, and they do use them a little differently too. So it is an interesting challenge sort of figuring out what the right user experience is there, because Twitter is much more of a broadcast mechanism, and Facebook tends to be more about very personal sharing. And so it is sort of different types of content for some people. So it may differ depending on your social network.
What about the conversation, threaded conversations, and how you interact with them? It seems like it's unlike with FriendFeed. You don't seem to have a real round trip experience with conversations. Do you agree with that? And if so, are you going to fix it?
That's one of the areas where I think real-time updates could help a lot, and one of the areas we're talking actively about. I mean, just because to make it a conversation, you need it to happen in real time. So,
do you think that's an advantage that you have over Twitter, which doesn't seem to be able to do real-time conversations at all?
Well, I just think I think actually like Twitter and Facebook, there's a lot of overlapping use cases, but I do think people use them pretty differently at the same time, and so it's something I think that. While there are some areas where Facebook's product gives it an advantage in user experience terms, there's other areas where Twitter's user experience is simpler as well.
I understand that. I'm not trying to gen up a competitive conversation here as much as saying that for a lot of us, as the whole concept of streams and real time has emerged as at the center of not only software but also hardware, like the iPad and the iPhone and that other device, I forget what it's called. Android. No, I haven't forgotten. There's how we organize these various streams is probably the most complicated and frustrating part of the experience. So is somebody going to do something about this, or are we all going to be waiting forever for what Dave Weiner wants with federated, loosely connected, not owned by any company that's making money servers?
I think, well, first of all, I actually think we share a lot of Dave's vision. We think that the future of social networks will probably look very distributed and very open, and it's one of the reasons why we've tried to slowly open up a lot of our platform. We adopted OAuth at our developer conference at F8. We've tried to make our data standards really align with data portability, trying to recognize that I think this is sort of the natural evolution of technologies. That said, I think that whether it's open or it's not, the volume of information flowing through and how to control that is an independent problem from the underlying technologies or openness. And it's something I think we're really interested in. I think, to me, I actually have to go pretty soon, but I just want to say, one of the fundamental design challenges is how magical and sort of algorithmic it is versus how much is sort of knobs and dials that you put in the user's hands. And I think one of the challenges is for people like you and Robert and me and probably Dave as well, to us the ultimate control is knobs and dials because, we're technology people and we're willing to take the time and sort of invest in that. And for a lot of people, they're not going to take the time to invest. And so, we need to find that balance there, so we provide sort of the best possible user experience to people who aren't investing the time, but at the same time not bury the controls so deep for the rest of us who want to really control it manually. And I think that's a really formidable design challenge. And I think we had somewhat of an easier time at FriendFeed because our product wasn't as widespread as a product like Facebook, and 500 million people is 500 million extremely diverse interests and backgrounds and number of friends and volume of content. And I think it's really like been very humbling taking a lot of the ideas that we had experimented with at FriendFeed and trying to apply it to a much more complex and much more diverse base of people. And I think I just wanted to say I actually think it's probably going to be a few iterations before we make something that really like meets your expectations, just because I think it's a very, very difficult problem.
Well, I think that's very fair. My expectations, however, are that we might see some indication in the product of a move in this direction, rather than some sort of end of the rainbow pot of gold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Since we're running short on time here, Danny, you want to close out with? Do you want to talk about Facebook and search at all?
Yeah, Brett, do you want to tell us what you guys are going to do? I mean, you haven't really seemed to try to do anything to apply the social graph on top of, say, the web-wide search results. We've seen a little bit of, it looked like some alteration based on likes, and I think you had actually come back and commented that wasn't the way some people were making it out to be. But I mean, how does Facebook view search? Do you see that as part of your guys' job to improve web search in general as well?
So right now, the predominant use case for our search engine is what in the search industry, we call navigational searches. I mean, basically someone seeking out someone or something in the social graph in particular, which is why the majority of our searches don't actually ever reach a search results page. Through the autocomplete mechanism in the search box at the top of Facebook, as you type, we show you the results, and the default, you click return and you just go directly to the profile of the page or the band or the whatever it is that you are looking for. And that's the vast majority of searches on the site, because if you think about Facebook, it's organized around people and things that you're connected to. And so showing you 10 matching results is just less efficient than just taking you directly where you want to go. Regarding the links coming into the like button, I think it's a really compelling idea to use that for search, but at the same time, we're really focused on what we consider the bigger pain point for publishers right now, which is engagement and discovery. So right now, the way those links flow into Facebook is they show up in the newsfeed and provide a really great discovery mechanism for people and provide a lot of traffic back to the sites that incorporate the like button. And then likewise on those sites, using our other social plugins, those sites can provide personalized recommendations or personalized newsfeed, which take those people who come from maybe a search engine who would have only stayed for one page view. Based on these personalized social plugins, they'll actually see content from their friends and stay there for like 3 or 4 more page views. And it's been a really good source of engagement for the sites that have put it on. That's not to say search isn't interesting maybe in the long term, but we're really focused on that problem initially because it is something that I think a lot of content sites have been wanting, but it's very difficult to build technologically and something that our platform is in sort of a unique position to provide.
Robert, last question.
The thing I'm most interested in is where you're going with location. You won't answer that.
Sorry about that.
I don't know. It's interesting. I just met with a company here in Boulder that's using the social graph to do. It's a real estate service where you visit a real estate web page, and you say, "Can you find any commonalities with the potential agents I'm going to deal with?" And it uses the social graph to find commonalities, like what high school students we all know together, or how many friends we have, what locations we've lived in together, what music we listen to, and that's pretty interesting. It's using it to do business, and it's mind blowing that we're using Facebook this way. I would never have predicted that 5 years ago. Where do you think the social graph API is going? Are you thinking more about that and how to make it even more powerful for developers to build things like that with the social graph?
Absolutely. I think that is our core asset that we provide via our platform. The identity of a person and the people they know and their reputation and their interests are something that it's something that's very tedious to type into a web form, but with the Facebook platform, a person can provide it with just a click. And I think it really produces some really awesome experiences. I mean, everything from dating to this real estate site to using your musical interest to personalize a site like Pandora. And actually, those have been some of the most interesting applications in my mind, because they're not just let's find your friends and make an app viral, but it's actually using your identity and your profile in really neat ways. And you just think of how tedious that interface would have been without this functionality, and to me that really speaks to the fact that this is probably one of the sort of the core asset our platform provides.
Yeah, Steve. Before I have to go because
we're all gonna disappear.
We should mention, I mean, the breaking story while we've been talking is HP's CEO just resigned. I don't know if that has any implications on the social world, but it probably has some.
Well, I mean, there were some social issues involved in the resignation, from what you told me previously.
Yeah, that's big news. I had no idea.
Yeah, he just resigned because of sexual harassment accusations.
And a cover-up in expenses, Tina tells us.
Wow.
Well, I don't know where to go with that, so I'm going to ask my last question, which is, how are likes going for you?
And I'm going to take
great.
Thanks, Robert.
It's my favorite graph to look at every morning to come into the office, up and to the right. It's been really neat. I mean, what's cool is it started off, I think, on a lot of content and media sites, but now we're seeing it all over the web. From e-commerce sites to personal blogs to, movie sites. I mean, it's really neat. I mean, it's just taking off. And what's great about it to me is more and more nodes in the social graph are things that live off of Facebook.com. And it was really a baby step at F8, but I think it's something that hopefully most of Facebook will be powered by sites that aren't Facebook in the future. I mean, and this is really a really cool first step of getting there, and the billions of like buttons we serve a day are definitely a great part of that.
It seems like there's some media sites or vendors of advertising that seem to be concerned about Facebook getting there first with control of that data. Do you think that's fair?
I'm not. What?
You're breaking up. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just didn't understand your question. Who were you saying was?
There have been some articles in the Journal and other places that talk about Facebook by aggregating this data about preferences and where users come and go in large numbers, that they're taking, they're sort of squeezing out this sort of social graph advertising environment and
well, so first of all, I just want to clarify one thing: is we actually don't aggregate any information about where you visit. We actually delete all of those logs within 90 days of their collection. We're actually explicitly focused just on the explicit interactions you have, like clicking a like button. It's actually something pretty unique to Facebook. We're not focused at all on tracking what you do. We just are only are concerning ourselves with the explicit social information, the stuff you've typed into your profile.
Right. It's what I've called gestures, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the neat thing about Facebook is you're in total control of your profile as it relates to social plugins or advertising systems.
The question isn't about users' concerns. It's more about competitors' concerns.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the competitors' concerns are, but I mean, our concern is providing as much value to the people who deploy these social plugins. So we have a product called Insights, which is basically our analytics product, and it can enable you to see in aggregate, how many people are clicking these buttons and their demographics, and some really great insights information. I mean, we've gotten pretty good feedback on it. My gut reaction is a lot of this is a little bit of a red herring. I think we provide, the data that's sort of actionable for these publishers to improve their site. And as we, get feature requests from them, we certainly plan on adding it. But I'm not too familiar with what these competitors do. So,
well, red herrings are better than outright attacks on privacy and the other things that you had to endure, right? No
Yeah.
comment? Are we going to get another no comment?
Oh no, no. I just tried to think. I mean, it's been a very thrilling ride for the past year.
Did you really expect that you would move so quickly into the driver's seat in terms of the technology?
I don't really think I knew what to expect going into it, but it's been really thrilling for me just because having worked at a larger company like Google, then done the startup, and now working at a company sort of on Google's trajectory, for me as like from a career standpoint, it's been very thrilling. It's been a learning experience to say the least.
Well, we very much appreciate you showing up as usual. By the way, I did mention to you on the phone about the bug related to the Adobe Air update that causes the notification on friend feed to just scroll up the screen and be unusable.
Yeah, so I apologize. The guy who wrote that was on vacation, but he should be back next week.
All right, well, I promised that I would push it again in your direction.
Feel free to keep harassing me. We'll get it fixed.
All right, well, thanks again for joining us. Danny, thanks for standing by as you have, and I hope you can do it again next week if that's possible, but I'll talk with you offline about it. I want to thank Rackspace and particularly Rob Legess, without whom this show would not be back on the air, and I want to thank NewTek and their TriCaster, without which this wouldn't be on video. And I think that over time we've seen a lot less of concern and complaints about this being video only. I think Rob's support for an audio version of this has helped quiet down some of that, but I think people are starting to realize that there's a lot of stuff that goes on this show in the cracks and the silences, but the video is not silent. It reads loud and clear. I want to thank everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.